Hey there, guys, out on the internet, on KLove, and wherever you guys hang out. This is Gil Velez, Gil's Arcade Spot, collector since about 1998, big time Dragon's Lair and Space Ace fan. So what I wanted to do today was just give you guys a real quick tutorial on how to install LaserCon. And as you guys might know, Sean Wood, old school DLP guy, and I think he worked at Cinematronics too at some point, from what I've heard. But in any event, he comes out with a new kit that replaces an old kit done by Ron Schwar that allowed LDP Sony laser players to work with Dragon's Lairs and Space Ace. And now we've got Sean Wood, who's got a new kit that's actually taking things up a notch. So instead of Sony LDP players that were, I believe, the late 80s for the most part, now you've got some early 90s Pioneer players that you can use with the system also. There's several models. I'll try to go into some detail about what those models are, but really quickly wanted to show you guys really what the install is all about and really what the work is all about. So stand by. So Gil Velez back from Gil's Arcade Spot. Again, I'm working on this Sean Wood project to install a LaserCon on my Dragon's Lair. Here's my Dragon's Lair. It's in pretty good shape. I've had this actually probably for about 10 years now. I've had several Dragon's Lairs. I've had several Space Aces. This was one of the prettier ones that I've had. Full side art, original control panel, original marquee, pretty good shape. So kind of really didn't need much. I think I did some T-molding on it, and that's about it. And it probably is missing a Cinematronics coin door plate, but in pretty good shape. But in any event, this video is about LaserCon, and what I wanted to show you guys was really quickly how to do an install of LaserCon and really sort of what's involved with that. If you can see below, I've got some parts out here. I've actually been through some of it already. Screwdriver, and actually did some board removal, and these are the LaserCon instructions. And then, as you probably already know, the guts of the inside of a Laserdisc machine, particularly a Dragon's Lair machine. And here's the board that's used on both Dragon's Lair and Space Ace. And again, if you notice here, I've already removed the ROM board, which is part of what needs to happen here. So this cable here is just waiting for the new LaserCon ROM board. That's the Merlin board in particular. That's actually Space Ace, Dragon's Lair, in both enhanced versions, all in one. And the rest of it's really your standard Dragon's Lair or Space Ace board. And really the ROMs are what makes everything different here. I've got the annunciator cable still connected here. That doesn't need to move. I already did remove the PCB cable here, and then the big fat connector from inside the game that powers the board and does all sorts of other things is actually right here in the background. So that's sitting in the bottom. And I already marked that cable to make sure that it goes back on the same way that it came off. And then again, what I've got here below is really what I call the third generation of Laserdisc players for Dragon's Lair and Space Ace machines. And this is essentially a Pioneer LDV 4400. If you remember, Pioneers did, I believe it was the 1000 version in the original Dragon's Lairs, and those are all in pretty bad shape. They've all crapped out for the most part at this point. I think it was an LDV 1000 back then. And then the second generation, and let me take you over here and I'll show you what that looks like. It is currently about ready to get thrown away because they're really not worth repairing. But here's an LDP 2000 actually, which is kind of the mother lode of Laserdisc players. If you had an AV room back in your school back in the 80s and early 90s, you probably had one of these monster Laserdisc players on your big black cart with a big Barco monitor on top of it. This was the second generation, and this is what Ron Schwar and High Tech Mechanical did with their card that I don't know if they make anymore, but Jeff Kinder and Dragon's Lair Project, they were available there for several years. And this is what got the original 7820 and LDV 1000 players to actually come back to life in some form using the LDP series, right? But now the LDPs are crapping out. So what do? And what you do is move on to the Pioneer series from the early 90s, the 4400, the 8000, or essentially the 4000 series and the 8000 series. But the two that work best, from my opinion, are the 4400, which is what I've got over here. See, I'll do a little close up and show you the logo there. So that's an LDV 4400. Hopefully you can see that. And then there's also an LDV 8000. You can find both of these on eBay for about 50 bucks. But the 8000 is a lot harder to come by. So when it comes to installing this, pretty easy stuff. Essentially, what I've got here is actually the old high-tech mechanical Ron Schwar plug-in. This is aftermarket. This is the one that I told you worked with the LDPs back in the days, early 2000s, when we first started trying to bring these Dragon's Lairs back to life, when the 1000s and the 7820s died. But below that is your standard Dragon's Lair or Space Ace ROM board, and this one in particular has Dragon's Lair enhanced ROMs. So if you've got the laser discs that were printed in the 2000s with the additional footage, or you want to do the gameplay of Dragon's Lair a bit more cleanly, you can check out dragonslairproject.com. They've got these 4 ROMs. You can burn them there. And some aftermarket guys like Steph at Hobby ROMs and other people, I think Jeff's ROM Hack also will burn these for you. But essentially, this is really the piece that you would normally see on a board that was not modified before with the Ron Schwar kit. You would just see this here. You see the 4 screws on the edge are exactly what was here, and I pulled out. And essentially, this is the plug that goes into that ROM board right about here, right? So I pulled that out. This, again, if you had the old Ron Schwar kit, you would have this too. But if you don't, this is really the only board that you need to pull off the machine to prepare to install LaserCon. And again, just for ease of use, I disconnected the ROM board connector. I disconnected the cable between the player and the ROM board, and I think I have that over here. So this one right here actually came up out of here, and this is what this is actually what goes from the PCB to the old Ron Schwar board. So sorry about that, just a correction. And then there would be a cable that comes from the Ron Schwar board over to your player, and you're going to see something similar to that coming from the LaserCon to your player. But the nice thing is here, and I'll show you this in a second, obviously if you had this here, the Ron Schwar kit, this goes away. If you had the old ROM board, this actually goes away, so you've got something you can sell on eBay, whether it's 1 or 2 pieces, likely 1 if you haven't already done the old upgrade. And you're going to get an entire new board with the LaserCon kit from Sean, and then this goes directly into your machine, and then this is what's going to interface, or the new board is what's going to interface between the ROM board and the player. And again, all that magic is going to happen here, and I'm going to show you guys next how to do that installation. So hopefully this prep work helped you understand. Okay guys, so Gil Velez from Gil's Arcade Spot back at you, straight out of New Jersey. And I'm going to continue in this Dragon's Lair Merlin install. That's going to be going in my Dragon's Lair machine that I've got here. So hopefully you saw the stuff a little bit earlier that's set up to this, but I'm going to go into actually showing you some of the pieces that I just received from Sean Wood and how simple the install actually is. So hang in there. Okay, so I just got the kit in the mail from Sean Wood. And here is pretty much what's part of it. Hope you guys can see this stuff. It's a bit dark outside, so it's not the most lit day for us, but it's essentially, let me get out of the shadow over here. It's essentially this cable that's going to be going from the Merlin board straight to your player. That's where all the magic happens. The actual board itself, let's see if I can go into landscape on this. And this is the Merlin board that's got all 4 sets of the ROMs. Dragon's Lair, Dragon's Lair Enhanced, Space Ace, Space Ace Enhanced, and you can choose those from the menu, or you can have the machine start up to either one of those. And then instructions. This is the particular dip switch page, which is really important, and I'm going to show you how that's all pre-configured. I've already filled in the values that Sean asks you to fill in. Finally, this is the stuff that I removed, so you should have seen this earlier in the video. And our magical 4400 player, Pioneer LDV 4400. Again, similar series from the LDV 1000, but really more reliable and more modern. So this is what we're going to use to replace the old LDP that I had in there before with the high-tech kit, which is right here that we've already pulled out of the machine. Okay, so here comes the install. To do the LaserCon Merlin install in my base Dragon's Lair board here, with everything pretty much ready to go, all I need to do is remove these screws, these 4 screws right here that I've got, really just holding the risers that are underneath that are going to hold the ROM board up. And then again, previously this sucker was living there, and this was the standard DL ROM board with the enhanced ROMs. Actually, I think if the enhanced weren't there, the 5th chip on the left hand side would be filled in, but since they're enhanced, there's only 4 chips. So this was sitting there before. Now we've got a blank slate with the ROM cable ready to go, and essentially all I'm going to do is plug in the LaserCon board in that location right there. I'm going to do that now, and then we'll continue with the install. Okay, so pretty painless. I've installed, unhooked these 4 nuts over here, which was holding the original ROM board, and replaced it with the LaserCon combo ROM board and LDP LDV 4400 sort of mechanism or control. And so that's in place now with screws. Again, one thing to watch when you're doing this with these risers is the risers will fall out, the screws will fall underneath. So you want to do this on a flat surface, not like I'm doing it here. Otherwise, you'll have to hold the screws at the bottom so the risers and the screws don't slip out from each other. But again, painless enough. I was able to get this in here, even with the machine still resting on the base of the back door. And again, the annunciator cable is still connected going up to the annunciator area where all the scoreboard magic sort of happens. I could have disconnected that, but I didn't because it really wasn't necessary for me to do this work in this fashion. So next, it's going to be for me to go ahead and install the ROM board that's beneath the standard PCB, connecting it to the Merlin ROM and LDV sort of control board. So I'm going to do that next, and then we'll take it from there. Alrighty, that didn't take too long, probably 10 seconds total. The ribbon cable is now connected, and that is connected between the base PCB, so you don't need to remove where it was originally, but you are replacing the Merlin board with the old ROM board, so now the ribbon cable connects to Merlin rather than the old ROM. So we're in pretty good shape, and that's pretty much the install. The greatest thing about this board is that it does not require power that's coming from the board. So it actually really works off the power that's already going to the PCB. No soldering. On the old LDP conversion boards, this is the beautiful high-tech mechanical, which is really a work of art and kind of helped us get to where we are today with these machines working again. Actually did require power. So if you notice, the 2 cables coming out over here are soldered in to the ROM board, and I believe there's power coming in off the ROM board that's actually powering and lighting this all up. There was another version that actually had a plug connected to it, and I've had that version also, but apparently this one was an earlier version that really just powered off of, I guess, 5 volts that were coming off the ROM board over to the Ronchoir board. But in this case here, we do not need power, or hopefully it's not going to prove me to be a liar, because I don't remember having to do anything here. So the ROM board is installed. The next thing here is really just to complete the setup by doing some dip switch settings, and I'll try to get this camera focused a bit better for the next section. Reconnecting our big white connector that brings power to the PCB, and also does a bunch of other stuff. And then finally the interface cable that's right here, going straight from the PCB to the player. And then that's really going to be it. So we'll take it from there. Okay, so really important. So we've got our board connected, as I mentioned. Actually, I was about to install the cable that goes from this connector here to the player, but I realized that it's actually going to overlap my dip switch settings if I do so. You're going to run it with the cable going that way. So let's get the dip switch settings out of the way first so we don't have to worry about getting back in there. This is a really important chart that comes with your instructions. And really it's related to all 4 games: Dragon's Lair, Enhancement, Space Ace, and Enhancement. But essentially what you're going to do here is set this up for the game that you plan on using the most. Again, you can potentially swap discs in here, and then you can also go between games. But I plan on using only the Dragon's Lair Enhancement because I've got a dedicated Space Ace sitting on the other side of the room, so I don't really need any of that. But if you needed to play all 4 versions for some reason, you'd go ahead and do the dip switch things, or you set things up for the most common way you would do it for all 4 games, or maybe just for 2 games, and then you'd leave B7 on. And that's where you can actually select between the games that you actually want to play. Again, mind you, you need to have the proper discs. So if B7 is on and it tells you to play Space, and you're telling it to play Space Ace, and you've got a Dragon's Lair disc in the machine, obviously that's not going to work. But in my case, I'm keeping both games separate, and I really just want to go with the enhanced versions of both games, so I keep it simple. So that's all that I filled out here. I went back into the manual to the Dragon's Lair Enhanced page. I think he's got a page for each type of game. This is the enhancement, and these are really the ROM settings that are probably referencing things that are in the manual, but I do believe these dips are all distinct for the Merlin board. So these things would never work, I think, if you weren't using Merlin. But they're pretty similar. Again, at least the actions are similar, but the dip switch settings are probably custom to Merlin. So you want to get all that stuff right. So I looked at this, saw that I wanted free play, saw that I wanted 5 lives, and then everything else to me is pretty much irrelevant. I did want the attract mode on every 8th time, and I did want the narrator voice on. So those 4 items I think are really all that I worried about up front for the most part. And so that's pretty much what I've got filled out over here. And then finally, the only other thing to remember is I wrote first time on here for the ROM selection. So I do want to select a game that I want to play the first time. But then once I've got Dragon's Lair Enhancement selected, I'm going to go ahead and turn BZ off. And then I'm always going to go to Dragon's Lair Enhancement. I'm never going to get the menu because I only want to play 1 game in this machine. So really important stuff over here. So I'm going to go ahead and alter these dip switches based on what I wrote down here, and then we'll go on to the next step. The dip switch settings are now all set the way I need them to, really. You're looking at your chart, as I had mentioned before, and you are just worried about the 0s and the 1s. Anything else is pretty much irrelevant, so either there'll be a black square and saying that the game really doesn't need it, or if there's an X, it really doesn't matter if it's off or on. So just make sure your O's and 1s are properly mapped to the dip switch settings that you've got here. And again, there's 2 banks. There's a bank A and there's a bank B. And to add to the annoying thing about this, but I think it's just a thing about Dragon's Lair, is 1 is really 0 in all cases, and then 8 is really 7. So really pay attention to the letters on the bottom of the actual circuit board, and do not pay attention to the numbers on the blue dip switches themselves, as they really don't match. So look at the so 0 is equal to 1 and 7 is equal to 8. As long as you follow that, you're in good shape. So we're all done here. Next is going to be to connect the cable from the PCB to the player, and I'm going to do that now that this is all done. And the cable's going to go in this direction, because if it went in that direction, it would collide with the annunciator. So I'm going to install that, and then we'll take it from there. Okay, and a quick apology in the event that I keep going from portrait to landscape mode. I don't know how this is going to come out on YouTube. I apologize in advance. I'm doing my best. It's my first tutorial on video in quite a while. I did a tutorial for optic sensors on Gorf back in like 2001, and that was before iPhones did good video. So this is my first video tutorial, so I hope it's okay. So we've got our connector that came with our Merlin board right here installed where the old connector used to be, that actually was going from my PCB to my Ron Schwar kit in particular. So this was going to the old Ron Schwar kit. But if you had this natively in your Dragon's Lair without a Ron Schwar kit, which probably most of you have, and you're doing this upgrade from stock to Merlin, then you would have a cable really similar to what I have here. And essentially, this is going straight from the PCB right into your player. And this is a bit of a different cable than you're probably used to. It's a smaller connector. It's got less pins. Looks like about 15 pins in there. And the old one was really like a big serial connector, similar to something that you might have into your printer. So this is different, and this does ship with the LaserCon, and this is all you get. You get instructions, you get your LaserCon board with the ROMs as you requested them, and you get this connector. And this is going to go into the back of our lovely laser player down here. And let me see if I can move some of this crap, and I'll just show you what that connector looks like. Essentially, it's a RS-232 connector. Pretty standard computer stuff, and that's where the other end of that cable is going to go. So my DL disc is already in the machine, all ready to go, facing down. Another thing to remember is that always face your silver side up and your media side down when you're doing these installs, similar to the way they used to be in the old LDPs and the 1000s and 7820s. That really hasn't changed, and somebody feel free to correct me there if maybe the 8000s do something different, but the 4000 series is still media side down. I'm going to go ahead and install this player. I'm going to connect this cable that's coming out of my board to the back of the player, and then we should be able to finish the install by connecting the big white connector and then mounting the PCB back in, and hopefully nothing blows up and I don't look stupid by doing this video. So alrighty, so a quick update. The board is back in place. Again, we've got our lovely Merlin component there. We've got our big ugly white connector connected. And if you notice the little black markings on the white connector, I did mark the stuff before I pulled it out, so I made sure I put it back in the same way, because this one looks like it probably would have fit either way. There's no notches on this one, so make sure you remember how it went in. Usually cables have memory and they tend to stay in a certain position, but I rather use a Sharpie and avoid any problems coming from that. Reconnected my little ground over here. That's actually holding the whole board in. And then finally you see the cable running down. That's the LDP, I'm sorry, the LDV 4400 to Merlin connector. So that's coming from the board, going down the gray connector. The RS-232 cable. I've got my audio jacks. I've got my power supply that was already in here. That's going to power the laser player. So all I need to do now is drop my beautiful $50 LDV 4400 in the bottom of the machine, connect all this stuff up down here, and we should have a working game. So stay tuned. Okay, so I thought I'd take a sorry about that, a quick shot of the back of the LDV 4400. We've got our audio connectors here. We've got our RS-232 coming from the PCB here. The nice thing about the 4400 that we didn't have in some of the older series is that we have a direct RCA jack out of the back of the machine, as well as the one that requires that little silver converter that you probably see on the LDV 1000s, the 7820s, as well as the LDP series. So nice thing is you can get rid of that little adapter, put it aside in case you ever need it someday, and just go straight RCA into the back of the LDV 4400. So all my connectors are here, my drawer is ready to go, my ugly yellow light is here. I'm going to pop the player back in and we should be in business. I'll be right back. Alright guys, so the Laserdisc player is back in the machine, the LDV 4400 Pioneer. I've got my ground control shirt on, so shout out to those guys. Our Dragon's Lair machine is about ready to get going again. So Trying to do this iPhone thing over here, so it's in the corner. I'm going to turn this sucker on, and hopefully everything works. And if something doesn't work, I'm either going to edit the mistake out of the video, or I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to show you how I fixed it. So we'll see what happens. All right, moment of truth time. Everything's installed. Everything's in the machine. We're going to turn the sucker on, and hopefully we get a Merlin menu where I can select Dragon's Lair Enhanced, see that everything's working, and then I can go over to the B7 dip switch and set it to default to Dragon's Lair Enhanced so I don't see the menu. Or I can leave it on if that's something that I like, but I'd rather not because I think it confuses people when they come over to the game room. So let me go ahead and give that a shot. We're going to do this real time. We got power going to the machine. Here's our start button. Nothing's blown up yet. Looks like I've got an LED on the Merlin board down there, which is sweet. I'm hearing some beeps, which are also awesome. So I don't think I screwed up too much just yet. So let's see where we land. Laserdisc player is booting up, which is a wonderful sound. I'm hearing the disc spinning, which is also fantastic. This one tends to boot up a little bit slower than the LDP with the high-tech, but that's okay because you're only going to boot up once. Looks like we've got 2 beeps going, and I hear some audio. Here's the start screen, just going through some frames, which is similar to what I saw on my... And here we go with Dragon's Lair. And that usually happens. You'll get a almost a false start, and I see that on my Space Ace also. So Sean Wood, something for you to think about. That happens on both of my machines. No big deal, because it only happens once. But now it should wait until the 8th attract mode based on my dip switch setting and give me the awesome attract mode. But I should be on free play, so if I start a game, things should work. So we'll see how that goes. Things look like they're working. I don't like those blue screens in between though. That's telling me something's not perfect. And also I didn't see the drawbridge screen, which tells me it might have defaulted to the original version of Dragon's Lair. So we're going to have to do some troubleshooting. These blue screens kind of suck. So let's see where we wind up. Might be the player, might be something else. Hang in there. Okay, so it's Gil Velez, Gil's Arcade Spot. I'm back again in the middle of a Merlin install on a Dragon's Lair, so we can use a Pioneer LDV 4400 instead of an old LDP or an LDV 1000 or 7820. So I had a little problem. I ran into my machine and I noticed that it was defaulting to Dragon's Lair Traditional, not Enhanced. And also I was getting some blue screens in between. And I've got a little bit of waviness on the top of my monitor after the install. So I remedied a couple of those issues. So I'm going to show you guys what the menu looks like. What I forgot to do during the install was set B7 to off, and that's the dip switch bank B to off, and that allows you to select the game that you wanted to use, whether it's Space Ace Enhanced, Dragon's Lair Enhanced that I mentioned to you earlier. So I went and put B7 into off mode so I can select my game from Dragon's Lair Traditional, which I think it defaulted to Dragon's Lair Enhanced. So let's turn the game back on. I'm going to show you quickly what that menu looks like. In case you ever want to do that yourself, you'll see OLE 21 show up, and then you'll see a timer. And then as the screen comes on, you'll start seeing the various versions that you can use. Prototype animation enhancement, that's if you've got that special edition disc that came out a while ago, Space Ace version 1, enhancement Space Ace, original Dragon's Lair, which is considered F2, and then Dragon's Lair enhancement. I've got an original Dragon's Lair disc, but I do want the enhanced scenes, so I can either let the clock run out to 0 and it'll go ahead and select that for me, or I can go ahead and just hit the fire button. Looks like it beat me to it, and it's going to go and continue to boot with the premise in mind that it's going to go with Dragon's Lair enhanced using a traditional disc. So we'll continue. We're on beep number 2 here, and if you have this game, beeps are very good. My free play is working. I've got 2 credits, and I don't know what the other numbers are on the scoreboard. but they're gone now. I hear my LDV 4400 booting up now. The one thing I must say, and Sean would don't hate me, I do think the high-tech kit that Ron Schwar and Joe Rovito did several years back is faster in booting up, but really, you know, who cares? Once you're live, you're live. So we've got the screen starting to show up. It cycles through a bunch of screens first, and then actually you get the false start that I mentioned before, and now this is the true start.
Dragon's Lair,
so this
a
is actually
fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon.
I'll go ahead and play a little bit so you see. I'm sorry if it's a little bit loud. I do need to check with my settings. I'll know it's the enhanced version if the first scene I go to is a drawbridge, and that's exactly what I'm seeing here. So I'll go up. Oh, and I got killed already. Oh no. Yeah, I did get killed. So sorry, I wasn't fast enough there. But the drawbridge is the enhanced scene that you would get. And again, the enhanced version is also a little bit harder. So if you don't complete a scene, sometimes it will make you do the scene again. So I'm going down, I'm going up, I'm going right, and I think I cleared it this time. Alright, so again, the blue screens are gone that were happening in between. I'll have to investigate what that was all about. Might be a conflict between my player and Dragon's Lair. And then this little waviness that I've got up here, if you can see my finger, that's probably related to the LaserCon player itself or my monitor, right? So we know the Sean Wood kit has nothing to do with that. That's really more of a technical problem related to the game. I do have another player, so I might try that out. But again, successful install. And for the record, I am not a super technical guy. The nice thing about this kit is that there was no soldering involved. So, you know, that's always a good day if I don't have to solder something, because usually I make most of my mistakes there. So that's it from lovely New Jersey, home of Richie Knuckles and Jeff Kinder and a couple of us crazy collectors. Again, Gil's Arcade Spot, collector since 1998. You can find me on Facebook at Gil's Arcade Spot or Gil Velez. If you want to friend me directly, you'll find me on KLove, potentially under the username Time for Action. And, you know, just glad to give back to the community. Hope this helped some of you guys out. Go get this kit. It works, and it lets you get through fixing your Dragon's Lair with minimal intrusion. No soldering, no weird power supplies, all that good stuff. Just a working machine, and you can select from several versions. So it's a good deal. So thanks, and take care, guys. I hope this helped you.